to see everyone here tonight in a very packed room. Hopefully you all brought some fans with you to try to keep yourselves cool tonight. We want to welcome you all to our event tonight, the State Senate District 12 debate between incumbent and Republican Dale Marsh and Attorney Taylor Stewart, the Democratic challenger. The Justice and Civil Rights Initiative is partnering with the Jacksonville State University College Republicans and the Jacksonville State University College Democrats to bring this event to you tonight. It was a great partnership to have planned this debate that took 2 weeks and 6 days. So a very, very quick process, but a very efficient process at that. So to help bring you the rest of our introduction, allow me to introduce Will Erickson, who is the president of the Jacksonville State University College Republicans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our political debate tonight. My name is Will Erickson. I'm the president of the JSU College Republicans. And as Ed said, this is a joint effort between not only the College Republicans, but the Justice and Civil Rights Initiative, as led by President Ed Moore III, and the JSU College Democrats, which is led by President A.J. Hall. So without the cooperation of these three groups, obviously, this event would not have been possible. So it's been a good neutral effort. This debate tonight has two main purposes. One, obviously, is to promote these candidates and to give them a good platform to share their messages. This venue will allow them to clearly delineate their differences so that we can be more well-informed as voters when we go to the booth next Tuesday. And the second, and what I feel is the most important purpose of this debate tonight, is simply to promote political activity not only among JSU students, but also in the community. You see, a great political philosopher from the 1800s named Alexis de Tocqueville stated in his work entitled Democracy in America that in order to have a healthy democracy, we must be active, well-educated, and an engaged electorate. So this debate is intended to help us meet these requirements. We're extremely we're extremely pleased to see a large crowd consisting of both students and community members. And I sincerely hope that we'll all be able to learn something here tonight that will help us to become more active, well-educated, and informed voters, because the very health of our democracy absolutely depends on that. Thank you very much.
And now I'll ask that you please stand as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. And now I'm going to ask that Jim Usher, who is the associate pastor at the Greenbrier Road Baptist Church, Anniston, present you with tonight's opening prayer.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let us pray. Lord Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to live in a free country, a country that was formed as one nation under you. However, Lord, I fear we have turned from what we once were. But Father God, your word tells us that when your people will humble themselves and seek your face, then you will hear us from heaven. Lord, I pray that both of these men would approach the throne of grace, the throne of wisdom, the throne of compassion, humbly, and seek you in all that they do. I pray that you would guide them as they guide us. Lord, we know that all authority comes from you. So, Lord, I pray that you would appoint and you would anoint the one that will lead this country and this state back to what we once were, one nation under God, led by biblical principles and God-fearing men. And Lord Father, all of these things I ask in the magnificent holy name of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Amen.
Thank you very much. And now, allow me to introduce our moderator. He is a member of the Jacksonville State University History Department. Please give a round of applause for our moderator this evening, Dr. Paul R. Beasley.
Associate Professor of History here at JSU. And this is Joanne's career, who's going to be my timekeeper. In addition to the obligatory stating, asking you to turn off your cell phones, to silence your cell phones, right? We also want to ask the audience to maintain civility and to refrain from applause after answers. As is befitting a university, we hope this will be a learning experience and it's not meant to be a pep rally. The questions tonight were prepared by Drs. Hathaway and Lester with the political science department in consultation with the college Republicans, the Democrats, and the Justice and Civil Rights Institute. There will be no questions from the audience. I'd like to welcome now our candidates for this evening. First of all, Senator Dale Marsh, the incumbent Republican and President Pro Tem of the Alabama Senate. Second, I'd like to introduce Attorney Taylor Stewart, the Democratic challenger. We thank both of you for being here and for your public service, Mr. Marsh, and your willingness to take it on, Mr. Stewart. It is in many ways a thankless job and sacrifice to serve the public. This will be a question and answer format. I'll ask each of you to make an opening statement of under 3 minutes, and then we'll each have 2 minutes at the end for closing remarks. I'll also ask, I will ask a question to both of you, alternating with you first, Mr. Marsh, and you will each have a maximum of 2 minutes to respond. The warning card will be raised, giving you warnings as discussed earlier, and so please keep it to the limit. So we will ask Mr. Marsh a question, and then Mr. Stewart will have the opportunity to answer, and we'll go to Mr. Stewart first. All right? So the first question goes to Senator Marsh. According to the Center on Budget and Policy, oh, right, you get your opening statement. I'm sorry. I didn't put that on my script. Mr. Marsh.
Can you hear me okay? I've got the mic on. Okay. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. I've been privileged to serve you in this room for 16 years. The district has changed over that time, but this group that's in here tonight, probably predominantly County, I've been your senator. One of the things I'm proud of in the most recent 4 years is as a member of the Alabama legislature, I was elected by my colleagues, every single one of them, Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, to represent them as their pro tem of the Senate. In other words, it is my job to lead the Senate. And that meant a lot to me that my colleagues from both sides of the aisle knew that I was the one to bring that group together to get the job done. And in this past 4 years, it has been a lot of work to do, but we've done it, and I think very proud. We've actually dropped the unemployment down to 6.7%. We've been extremely fiscally conservative. We have a smaller government than we had 4 years ago by some 5,500 state employees. That was a very compassionate way as they retired. Those positions were eliminated. And our government is 12% smaller than it was 4 years ago. As I said, I'm a fiscal conservative. I believe that a smaller, right-sized government is less burden on the private sector. And that's what I've strived for, and I think that's one reason our unemployment rate has come down. And I think that's why we're seeing so many jobs coming into this state, which we'll talk about sometime later today, and the diversity that we are seeing as a state that we've never seen before. So if I'm re-elected by you in this room and others, I plan to continue down that path, do all I can to make us a fiscally conservative state, and hopefully show the federal government how you live within a budget. And we're going to continue to do that. And it's my pleasure, as I said, to be here tonight. And I do have to say, thank you all for coming out. How many of these forums we've done, and many times you can't get the room full. Obviously tonight that your people are paying attention. It's closer to the election. And I do hope we have many of the students from Jack State here as well. And I think it's a perfect place to have this at Jack State because it's an education institution and people need to educate themselves about how our government works and policy. Thank you very much.
Mr. Marsh.
Thank you everyone for coming out, taking time out from your busy schedule tonight. My name is Taylor Stewart. I'm from Anderson, Alabama. I'm a lawyer. Became a lawyer in 2006. Graduated from JSU. Graduated from Anderson High School. Went to law school at Birmingham School of Law. Now, I decided to challenge my opponent because of his lack of sincere concern for our children, our teachers, our families, and our schools in this district. I've spent the last 265 days on the campaign trail talking to folks out in the community, public officials, stakeholders, and what they said to me is that they need a leader that cares about their schools, public schools, private schools, and the funds that are available for those schools. They want a leader that properly funds the schools to improve computer technology, one-on-one technology. What they also want is to improve their career tech opportunities for the public schools. They want a leader that does not divert the educational trust funds in that educational trust funds, convert it over to scholarship funds to make money for your friends that were in office before. They also want a leader that will pay attention to the needs of the district and not forget the district. Bring jobs back to this district. That means Talladega, Northeast Talladega, Western Clay, and all of Camden County. They want a leader that responds to people's requests and needs based on that economic development that we desperately need here. We need a leader that they say that brings jobs here, improves industry here. That hadn't happened in the last 16 years under the present leadership here. Now, can you believe my opponent says that he has improved ethics in Montgomery? Come on, Dale, are you serious? We have a disgusting mess in Montgomery. According to the recently indicted Mike Hubbard, he and my opponent are partners. They talk literally every day. I didn't say that. Representative Mike Hubbard said that. Need I say more? Yes, it's time for new leadership in District 12, and the people in District 12 want that change.
All right, well, let's get on to the questions then. Mr. Marsh, you'll have 2 minutes to answer, and then Mr. Stewart, 2 minutes of your own.
Can't hear you.
According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, Alabama is the second highest in cutting education funding between 2008 and 2014 at approximately 17.8%. What specifically do you plan to do to bring education funding back to pre-recession funding?
In 2008, first let me say that Republicans were not in charge until 2010, but the Democrats weren't to blame either. If you in the audience remember 2008, we had a housing crisis, had a bubble that burst. That was a high water mark for all government agencies. At that point in time, Alabama, in its education trust fund, had $6.9 billion. After 2008, when the decline and the bubble burst, those funds dropped to $5.9 billion, $1 billion gone. Well, let me tell you what we've been doing over the past year since that happened. We've been working to drive up the tax rate, because the tax revenue is where it's at. We didn't cut anything. The people in this state quit spending dollars. People going through a tough time. Probably a lot of this room, including myself, going through some tough times. So we had to be fiscally responsible. We couldn't spend more than we had. What were we going to do? Come out and tax everybody higher to make up $1 billion? No. We tightened our belts. We tightened our belts and made sure that we lived within our means, and we started looking at our education budget as we did the general fund budget, and did everything we could to streamline and get it within budget, and we did that. During that period of time, the teachers, even as tough as it was, teachers received one pay raise and one raise dealing with the tuition, the insurance, keeping it whole. We did all that we could during that period of time. Today, one of these interesting, that was a 17% drop, because that occurred, if you took 2008 out of that equation, it was a 3% drop. And today we're working our way back. We're working our way back through job growth, and that will bring us tax growth. And that's our plan. We're doing it now.
Thank you, Ms. March. Mr. Stewart.
Well, I would just say to that I would repeal the Accountability Act. The Accountability Act that was passed in the middle of the night, used power, opponent used power to pass it down there. What it does is it diverts $40 million into scholarship fund. And that is income tax that's supposed to go into the educational trust fund is diverted into scholarship funds. corporations get 100% tax credits on that. That's the kind of funding that we need in education right now to bring that funding back up where it needs to be. We need to, like I said before, improve the technology, get new classes. That costs money. So when you do that, and you raise that educational trust fund, that will be $25 million each year. That's the cap. It could be more. He said he wants to raise it up to $50 million. Who knows? It might be $100 million before 5, 6 years. And on those scholarship funds, you have a 5% administrative fee, and also processing fees. The people who administrate that scholarship fund, the first year, 2013, one of those persons got $980,000. That's funding we need for the educational trust fund. Like you said, we need to improve the economy. We also need to improve industry here. If you ask him, I don't think he's helped get any industry here in this community. He was on the JPA board. I would work with the NBA board to try to develop that property. He didn't do it when he was on the JPA board. I say he's been negligent in that regard because we have high unemployment rate, high poverty rate here. I will try to work with economic developers after I formulate a plan with all the public officials here, all the cities, all the county officials. Work on that plan. What industry do we need here? We have a workforce here we need to bring here. We need to fill up all the industrial parks. That will produce more income tax, more sales tax, and bring more funding back to the educational trust fund.
All right. For our second question, to you, Mr. Stewart, first. JSU is a state university, and we've seen our state funding cut significantly over the last few years, and that has been replaced by increased tuition on the students. What, if anything, can the state legislature do to control the rise in tuition rate at JSU?
Well, for one, I wouldn't cut out of the educational budget the insurance that was supposed to be paid by the state. Now it's on the burden of faculty and employees. They have to pay that. In the future, it might go back to tuition increases to pay for that PO insurance. That was taken out of the trust, out of the budget by my opponent. I wouldn't do that. Now, JSU funding comes from the educational trust fund, so we want to try to maximize and protect that fund. Did you know that $360 million of that goes to other programs? But they're not identified as K through 12 or higher ed. So we need to earmark those monies, protect them in the educational trust fund. Don't divert them to scholarship funds. That's one way we could prevent the raise in tuition.
All right, good. Mr. Marsh.
Approximately 1/3 of JSU's budget comes from the state. The other, of course, the $110 million budget approximately comes from tuition. The biggest reason for the downturn in income was because of change in federal government how Pell Grants were given. Now, you got 500 less Pell Grants coming to university. That's going to drop those numbers down. Even with that said, last year in the budget was passed by the legislature. The governor said over a budget that we added $400,000 to Jack State above what the governor suggested. In the last 4 years, actually, Jack State's budget has been within about $600,000 more than the other in a very tough time. And I work, and I think if you talk to anyone that worked with Jack State, I saw Don Kellyworth there, I think, earlier. We work with the administration to discuss where they want priorities, what to do with it in that budget, and we do that. We do that continuously. And I'll be honest with you, I've had no one in my office raising Cain about how Jack State's treated, because obviously they're treated as fairly as the other great universities in the state. And we're going to continue to do that. We've got to raise revenue to raise those dollars. And I was criticized for not creating a job, but let's make it real clear. I'm a businessman. I personally, my own business, created 160 jobs. Some 6,000 jobs have been created since I've been here in the legislature. Fort McClellan, which supposes a ghost town, has 3,500 jobs out there at this very time, and it's going to have a lot more, have another 400 coming. So trust me, as a businessman, I know how to create jobs. I've done it. I've signed the front of a paycheck. And I'll continue to create jobs if you send me back to Montgomery. Thank you.
Excellent. Question number 3. Many JSU graduates would like to remain in the area. The unemployment rate for this area is much higher than the state average. What industries would you recruit to this area, and how would you do it? This will go to you first, Mr. Marsh.
Well, first of all, the question. The unemployment rate last I saw was 6.7%. The state average is 6.6. That's 1/10%. So I don't know there's a huge difference in unemployment. But let's talk about what we face as a community. We lost Fort McClellan. We had Monsanto, we had a pollution issue that went on for 10 years. We had an incinerator, which we had to destroy those weapons, that went on about 10. All these things were going on. And in spite of all that, we're merely 1/10% below the whole state average. Folks, I think that's pretty good. Now, we're going to continue to do better, and as local economic developers in this area have done a great job. And we've got, every day, we're looking at prospects that people are bringing to this area. And I want to make sure that those people we bring to this area are quality of life jobs, those kind of jobs that we want for our kids that are better than we've had in the past. We decided rather take more of a rifle approach and pick out those industries we want, aerospace, automotive, than perhaps the old industries like textiles that weren't paying the wages. So I'm all about growing jobs, because that in essence raises those funding for the universities as it does all of education. And want our people who graduate this great university to stay locally because those jobs are there. And that's what I plan to do. Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny, he talks about jobs and producing jobs. He didn't start talking about this in this campaign. It's still I've raised the issue. I've talked to all the public officials from Ashland all the way up to Piedmont, and they say, look, my opponent had nothing to do with bringing jobs to this district. What they said, what they want to do is meet with me, if elected, work on that economic plan for each area, partner together. They want to get manufacturing jobs, soft industry jobs, that's high-tech jobs, industry compatible with the automobile industry. Construction jobs need to be created here. We need to have projects come out of legislation that is passed in Montgomery, which hasn't happened. Roads need to be repaved. Bridges need to be repaired. That needs to happen. That'll get contractors, electrical engineers, other engineers back to work. That's what we need to do. We need to pay attention to the community. And that's what they told me that they needed to have done, which hasn't been done in the past 16 years, which is listen to those public officials and actually respond to their requests and the needs of the community. So that's what we need to do to recruit business in this area. Listen to folks, actually speak louder than words. So when I get there, I actually go down to Montgomery, give those people a plan out of the state. That's the economic development folks. And recruit industry, when it's recruited in the state, it doesn't come to this district, it goes elsewhere. And that's the truth about it.
All right. Question number 4. We'll go to you, Mr. Stewart. Given the fact that many students work part-time jobs for minimum wage pay, what is your stance on the possibility of raising the minimum wage and why?
Well, we have a federal minimum wage, and single-parent families and some families that are poorer than others have a hard time with getting the necessities they need and paying for those things, for their family, for their spouses. But I suggest, I do support raising the minimum wage up to help those folks out. It's so low, they can't do what they need to do with the minimum wage, right, as it is. And there's no rule in government, federal law or state law, that says we can't raise the minimum wage. We just can't go below the federal minimum wage. So I support raising the minimum wage.
Senator?
Well, the question refers to Jack State students, not families. Of course, I hope that most of those starter type jobs, but I consider them are held by students, and they need those jobs. it's been stated, had President Obama got his way, he raised that minimum wage, 500,000 people could have lost their job. I'm a believer in the free market. I don't want to increase those wages to the point that those establishments can't compete, and not, or worse, they start reducing the size of their force, their sales force, and people lose their jobs. I mean, we're totally different on this, honestly. I mean, he believes in government intervention, and that's the way you solve the problem. But I don't believe that's the way you raise your tax base. There are different job sectors for everybody, and the starter jobs, such as a lot of fast food, those have been traditionally held by college and high school kids to get a start and have some income. But we can't start raising those minimum wage, and in the end of the day, they lose those jobs, which many of those students are supplementing part of their college education with. So I'm not going to do anything to eliminate jobs. We sit here all night and say, we got to create jobs, create jobs. Well, the last thing we want to do is jack up a minimum wage and cost jobs. So I think that segment of the workforce that's there, it's going to be there. Let's concentrate on those higher paying, high tech jobs for those families, what we have to look at, concentrate and bring into this area. That's what I'm going to do, and it has been doing, and will continue to do. Thank you.
So for you, Mr. Marsh, what is your stance on the possible implementation of the state lottery? I'm sure you've never been asked this question before.
Some people think as a Republican I'm scared of that question, but the truth is this: I have no issue with the lottery. If the people of this state choose to vote a lottery, I've got no problem. As pro tem of the Senate, I could literally stop that piece of legislation from coming to the floor at any time. But I'm telling you tonight, as I've told to other groups, I won't stop it. If there's a lottery bill that comes to the legislature, I'll let it get a vote, and I'll let it come to people. What I do not want to do, and we differ on this, 87% of the money we budget is earmarked. You might as well say we don't budget it, it's earmarked. My opponent wants to put all the money into education. I think the more sensible thing to do is put that almost like a safety valve fund, that when you got a shortage, whether it's in prisons, whether it's in education, whether it's in Medicaid, whether it's the budget itself, whatever it is, have that bit of money that you can use where you need it. And don't tie your hands to where you don't have it. So many times the state of Alabama looks for one-time money, and in that one-time money to solve a problem. We have worked over the last several years solving long-term problems for this state. We don't want it to be yearly problems. We want to solve those long-term problems. And I think that using these dollars in a safety fund to be used when you need them is a way to help you solve the long-term problems. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that last question. I would support raising the minimum wage for students and starting jobs. Now, I would also support voting for a bill that would allow people in the state to vote for educational lottery. I do believe the last poll taken was more than 60% want an educational lottery. They want it earmarked for education, not to be put in the general fund where folks can grab their hands on it and do whatever they wish. They want those funds because, like I heard before in one of these questions, we don't fund our schools properly, so that would be one other way to do it. If you want to look at Georgia, they have a program over there. They have Hope scholarships over there that allow all the students to go to their public secondary educational schools, their universities over there. That allows people that don't have a lot of money to get a scholarship to go. That's what that educational lottery does over there. And I do disagree with them on not earmarking that money for education. So I would put it up on a bill to let people in this state vote on it. I wouldn't actually enter law that says that we have to have an education lottery. I would let the people vote on that first and decide.
All right, our next question goes to you, Mr. Stewart. It's a nice red meat for you. With the indictment and guilty pleas of several state legislatures, what would you do to end the corruption or the perception of corruption among our political leaders?
Well, first what I would do is be true to everybody about my campaign finances, which I have been. If I'm a senator and I'm down there and I have a sense, and people are telling me that there's some unethical behavior as far as passing legislation I wouldn't stand behind that person, rally, and make excuses about why he wasn't, why he's innocent. I would actually work with prosecutors. I wouldn't perjure myself in the grand jury. And I would clean up Montgomery, because it is a big mess down there, and it's an embarrassment to the leadership of Montgomery right now. And I would do whatever I could to clean up the ethical problem we have down there if I had any
In 2010, we passed one of the toughest ethics laws in the country. It's been described by papers as such. You know, I hate it when a single politician is in trouble, it looks bad, and I hate it. But you cannot label Montgomery, in my opinion, as corrupt. It is not. These people come down, all these people working hard to get the job done. So I'm not going to lay blame on anybody. They have their day in court. And I've been, let me say this, there was a grand jury going on, and I've just got to clear this up. I was called as a witness, and it has been very clear, I have no investigation whatsoever, and anybody that says anything different is lying. That's it. Mike Hubbard is on trial, he'll have his day in court, he should. As everybody in this room should have your day in court if you are indicted. But Mike Hubbard is a friend of mine. I've served with him for 16 years. And I pray for his family and him every night. And I do it to anybody, my friends that I know that are in the same situation. I've done it for Don Siegelman too. So if I'm guilty for caring about my friends, then I'm guilty of that. But you will not find Del Mar's guilty of an indictment or being charged with it. Thank you.
Well, we'll go back to you, Mr. Marsh. Alabama is currently ranked 45th in the nation in per capita income. Would you be willing to expand Medicaid to ensure more poor Alabamans? What ideas do you have to improve health care in Alabama?
And we've had this discussion before as well. Understand, we have a Medicaid system that when I went into office, it was $365 million with the state paid into it. Last year, it was $700 million, 1/3 of the entire general fund. Folks, that system's broken, and we're trying to fix it. We passed a law 2 years ago that the regional medical centers overtake the weight of this Medicaid expense in hopes of saving dollars. They tell us it's going to save us tens of millions of dollars. I want to see that. I want to see that before I expand the program, that if we do it as the federal government wants us to, is 300,000 more people on our Medicaid program. Well, folks, there's a price tag associated. Yeah, the federal government will pay it, as they say, to get you started. But you know, they print their money. Ours is real. And when those federal dollars run out, they will. There's a timeline, they're gone. Then that burden is on the state. And I'm just not going to do that. Until we fix the problem, if we can show me progress in controlling the cost of Medicaid, I want to do all I can, as I'm sure everybody's to help anybody in need have those dollars. But I'm not going to put an undue expense to all the citizens of this state and bust the general fund, which only gets a third of the money anyway of the tax revenue. We've got prisons to run, we've got a court system to run, we've got a DHR, all these agencies to run, and yet you've got that one entity getting a third of all the dollars of the general fund. I'm going to work to make sure we fix the problem, and when I see the problem fixed, and we will address those in need to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Well, I looked at the UAB study, and I think that we need to expand Medicaid. We have 300,000 Alabamians that need it. One way we can do that, what it says, that it would produce $20 billion in economic activity. It would produce, after we pay for it over 10 years, about $1 billion in net income tax after it's all paid for. It will create about 30,000 to 40,000 jobs in the healthcare industry. That will produce the income tax that we need to pay for. You know, also, we need to keep those rural hospitals open. Right now, without expanding Medicaid, they might be closed. We also use those Medicaid dollars for childbirth. About 57% of childbirth funding that comes from Medicaid. It's one thing we need to do. Nursing homes use it. It was probably close too if we don't expand it. Also, our tax dollars are going to pay for other states' Medicaid. If we don't expand it, that'll continue to happen. I think it's a morally right thing to do to ensure people that are working, that are part-time workers, that are coming off their parents' insurance, those students that are without insurance. It's something that we need to think about doing, and it's something that we can pay back because it's the first 3 years we don't have to pay it back. The government gives us $11 billion, $20 billion in economic activity. Subtract that, you got $9 billion in economic activity. You don't have to pay it back in the first 3 years, and that's actually 10% of the Medicaid cost. The government pays 90% of that. It starts paying it back in the 4th year. That's when we have to pay for the 10%. We can raise that revenue by producing all those jobs. The UAB study that I read was an independent study, wasn't paid for by the Koch brothers. It was done by doctors to see what the benefits of Medicaid expansion would be right now.
Excellent. All right. Jacksonville State, Mr. Stewart, has over 500 criminal justice members. Based on the number of traffic accidents in the state of Alabama, it's estimated that we're short 500 to 600 state troopers. Calhoun County itself is short 14 by this estimate. What would you do to increase the number of troopers on the road and ensure the safety of our citizens?
Well, the only way to supply more state troopers is to have more funding and revenue coming into the state. It appears for the last 16 years, for the past 10 years, that we've been cutting state employee salaries, making employees pay more into their retirement. There'll be more cuts in state employees is what I hear. What we don't hear is raising revenue, bringing industry into this community, helping small businesses grow, putting construction people back to work. That's what we don't hear from my opponent. And that's the supermajority. I think they have failed in their fiduciary duty as a senator and legislators to generate revenue in the state. Because we have a shortfall in the general fund. We have $240 million that we're behind in the general budget. We're also $11 million behind the educational trust fund. What we need to do is have a leader down there that will bring industry here, work with small businesses, give them incentives, loans, projects to help with their infrastructure, tax incentives to build that small business, make them grow, get industry here. That's how we get revenue here. That's how we pay for that. And talk as chief, he's the CEO of my company. I would fire my opponent for failing and neglecting this area in that regard.
First, you have no company to be a CEO over, but what I would say is that there are more ways to, besides just raising revenue. For instance, we passed 2 years ago the Public Safety Initiative, which took 22 different agencies and combined them into 7 over 16 months. I spoke with Spencer Collier this morning and said, how's it going, Spencer? How's that consolidation going? He said, Dale, by the end of the year, we can add 100 troopers to the road without any increased cost to our citizens. Because we have downsized those positions of accountants and other duplication that are, when you do this combining of these agencies. You've got to do both. You've got to strive to build business in the state and bring that tax revenue, but you also have to control the size of its government. Surely, I think most everyone in this room will agree that the federal government is out of control. And we're trying to send a message. You can do both. You can control the right size government so it's less burden on the citizens and the private industries, and at the same time grow your economy. And we're doing that. So, I mean, when I spoke with Spencer, he's very pleased with the direction we're going. We're sharing resources, and we've got as good a law enforcement agency as we've had. And let me tell you, talking to law enforcement in the state, all the different entities, they love this piece of legislation. They think it brings uniformity, it's efficiency, and at the end of the day, you as citizens will be better served with actually less money. And I think that's a good thing. Thank you.
Well, in addition to a large criminal justice program here, we are an education college, right? A normal school. We have a large number of education majors. And educators overall have not received a cost of living raise in over 6 years. What do you say to those and future education students about their career choice?
Everybody's suffered several of these years. The private sector, trust me, has suffered as well. But let me say this, that, as you said, there's not been an increase, and actually there was a 2% increase a couple of years ago, and a cost of living deal with insurance that we took care of last year. But today, among 7 southeastern states, Alabama has the highest starting salary of any of them. Average salary in that state of Alabama is second only to Georgia of those 7 southeastern states. So without that, we've held our own. I want our teachers truly, I want them, they're now paid enough. My wife was a teacher. My kids went to public school. I went to public school. I'm a believer in public school. But, and I want those educators to want to stay in Alabama, but what we want to do in the free market is you want to make sure that your teachers are paid fairly and have good benefits. And that's what we've done. I mean, through all this, as I said, those stats are real. And we're going to continue. I would love to see eventually our teachers paid as high as anywhere in the country. And we're going to work to do that. We're going to do it as we build this economy. But the fact that we've been able to hold ourselves in that position I think is pretty good. So I'm going to continue to do all I can to make sure those salaries are fair in the market, and those people want to stay here. And I think, as I said, you can't argue with the fact that right now they are paid at the top in starting salary in southeastern states and second among average salary. Thank you.
Well, I would give teachers, educators, support staff, bus drivers, their living allowance that they're supposed to have. They hadn't had one in a long time. Even when they did have one, a step raise, they had to pay $2,600 into the retirement system that comes out of their paycheck. That's a pay cut. So that offsets it. Retired teachers don't get the cost of living allowance. They hadn't gotten one since 2008. I would try to do that. Now, like I said, he's going to take money here and there. He's going to take more money out of the retirement system and put it wherever he wants to do. So, paying more money out of your checks is going to occur. I would object against that. I would vote against that when passing budgets. Also, the insurance that you have to pay up here, you have to pay now. It was paid by the state. I wouldn't cut that out of the budget. So it might look bleak with the president senator down there in Montgomery, but if I'm elected senator, I would do differently by y'all by paying you what you deserve. My sister is a teacher, and she's over in Georgia because she gets paid a little bit better. She doesn't get a lot of retirement taken out of her checks that you see here. He's failed, and the other leaders down there in Montgomery have failed by creating revenue. And now they're passing budgets and adversely affecting teachers, support staff, bus drivers, and school resource officers, and taking money away from the educational trust fund. When you do that, it does look bleak working here, but like I said, if I'm there, I'll change things and pay teachers a little bit better what they work, give them cost of living allowances that they need.
All right, so we stay with you, Mr. Stewart. What's your stance on the Common Core curriculum and law?
Well, I agree with the high standards for Alabama. I agree with the 2020 plan that was introduced, I think, back in 2020. Alabama has standards that were copied by all these different states. So we've been using these Common Core high standards for about 20 years. I think the problem people have with that, and I will try to address that if elected senator, is that they have a problem with teaching their kids. It's hard in this transition time period to teach their kids critical thinking skills because it's a new curriculum. And the teachers need to be trained. And they're being trained right now. They're going to learn it. And they're going to teach it to the students. Karen Roper's a relative is going around this county and teaching these teachers how to implement the new curriculum. I think the problem is that people just didn't understand it. I think with a little bit of time, it would be good for Alabama. Teaches our students critical thinking skills in English and math that will put them on the same level as other students in other parts of the country and in the world. And that's what we need here. But like I said, if people have problems with that, I think it's taken care of at the local districts to deal with the content if they have a problem with that. And I will address that. I won't leave it up to State Board of Education to deal with the curriculum. You know, if I hear that a lot of people have problems with that, there's a problem with training the teachers to implement the curriculum. I'll get to the bottom of that. But one thing we can't do is take money out of the Educational Trust Fund because we need those resources for the training of that new curriculum that's going to be implemented. And I do agree with the 2020 plan.
My position is Obama's policies are not Alabama's policies. That's why I trust Alabama School Board that they have done to design their own career-ready standards that fit our children in our communities, and that's exactly what they've done. There's been and the fact of the matter that the state school board members are elected by you to make those decisions on policy of education. So I want to let them do their job. Most recently, Professor Cynthia McCarty from Jack State was elected on that board. And she's done a fantastic job. I was down in Montgomery with her and other board members about the 2020 plan and the vision for education in this state. And I trust these men and women to make those decisions and should be allowed to make those decisions. So if we're going to let the legislature come in and change that, then why have a school board? I mean, I'm going to let the people do their job. And if I don't like the job they're doing, I'm going to elect someone else to replace it. Just as if people don't like the job I'm doing, they can replace me. Those positions we work for. In fact, with all the talk of education tonight, and I'm surprised you weren't running for the school board, but that's fine. We're going to go ahead and work with the school board to develop policy and make sure that's implemented to help our kids so they can be the best they can be and that we can compete not just with Alabama, but with kids all over this country because they deserve the best education possible. We're going to give it to them. Thank you.
All right, another perennial question for Alabama politics, the Constitution. It's the longest in the world. Would you favor revision?
In 2010, when I was elected pro tem of the Senate, this issue has been around the legislature for years. In fact, Albert Brewer, as you all remember, Albert Brewer, came to me and said, Dale, would you please try to do something about this? So what I did, I said, listen, we're never going to get anywhere if we look at this as a whole, so let's do it by article. We set up a commission from across the state, people had appointments on it. These people came and worked for months to look at article by article. And the one thing we took, or two things we took off the table was the taxation and property distribution or rights. So we took those off the table because those were always the things that stopped us from rewriting the Constitution. We passed 3 of those articles. You passed them 2 years ago on a constitutional revision on the ballot. We have 6 more of those articles ready to come before you in the not this election, but most likely the next election. All that work is being carried on. We have not messed, as I said, with taxation or property rights, but all those other areas have been addressed. And that's what, you get snapshots. You get snapshots of what's going on in the legislature, and I realize that. A lot of times you don't realize that this thing's a continuous movement. It's going on all the time. Even though we're not in session, I'm still going to Montgomery. We're still meeting. We're still getting work done. And that's the way these articles, they've been worked on for 2.5 years. And we're at the first point in a long time we're going to have most every one of those articles rewritten and greatly reduce the size of that Constitution. So once again, I find that in some cases, people have not didn't realize these things were going on, but they are. And so I'm proud to say that I tackled that as pro tem as one of my first initiatives, and we're making progress. And by the way, Governor Brewer is the chairman of that commission. Thank you.
Well, I agree with revising the Constitution, but I would leave it up to the decision of the people to revise it. So I agree with them. Most
That's good to hear. I'm glad there's agreement. Now if we could just make it happen, right? So, Mr. Stewart, we'll stay with you. Alabama is one of the few states that still taxes groceries. Would you support removing the grocery tax?
Well, it is a high tax. Other states don't have grocery tax. Puts an undue burden on a lot of folks to pay for that. But it does fund the educational trust fund. So if we did that, I would want to have some kind of supplemental income, not raise taxes in any way, maybe educational lottery, other ways to produce revenue to supplement what that grocery tax pays for. That would be the only way for me to do that. And it would have to be done by the vote of the people.
I'd love to get rid of the grocery tax, I really would. There's a couple of issues that you've got to address if you do that. Some states have done it. One is a $300 million hole in the education trust fund. What we're doing right now, we're looking at all tax breaks we give industry and businesses across this state. And we're asking this question, at the end of the day, if you give those breaks, if the net gain for the state of Alabama through tax revenue, whether it's jobs, whatever, is it greater than the break you give them? And we're evaluating that. If somebody can't give a good case for why they get that tax break, we're going to look at taking it away. Now, if enough of that, and by the way, if you take all those tax breaks that are given to business in this state right now, that number is $2 billion. So we need to look at that. If they're justified, fine. If they're creating jobs, fine. But if they're not, we need to say, where can that money be recaptured? And in that case, you might could eliminate the tax on food. But if you do that, in my opinion, you've got to make it across the board. If it's immoral, if it's wrong, then it's wrong. And if the state is going to do away with their 4%, then the cities and the counties who are charging 4 5% on top of it, they need to eliminate it over time as well. We've got to find a way to make that transition. And I'll do that. We're working and looking at that right now. But then there is the argument. There's the argument in some cases that the food tax is the only tax some people pay. And you've got to ask yourselves as citizens, okay, should they pay something? Should everybody contribute something to our economy? You've got to ask that question. These things are being discussed, and we're looking at them, but I'm not going to do it and leave a $300 million hole in the education trust fund. Thank you.
Well, excellent. We've come to our final question of the evening, and we'll start with you, Mr. Marsh. If you had to prioritize the following three things, which is the most important for our state and why? This sounds like so many essay questions. Would you prioritize education, unemployment, and underemployment, and the issue of taxes?
Well, I think what you're saying, I don't want to prioritize unemployment. I want to prioritize job growth.
Yeah, good job.
That's what I'll work on. I think some of the things you did and been discussed tonight, you'd be pushing unemployment. I think the jobs is number one because they're all interrelated, but the job is first. I mean, if you create the job, you create the dollars for the education. You create the tax revenue for education. That's the key. And that's what we continue to try to do. Right now, we're in the process of looking at a statewide incentive package that works for everybody. Small business, big business, existing business. I had a sheet, I've got it with me tonight. There's 141 businesses in this county that have created 6,000 jobs since I've been here. It's the existing industries that are going to create most of the new jobs we see in Calhoun County. That's just the way it works. So you want to make sure all these incentive packages are created, they benefit those people who have been bringing those tax dollars to our community. They deserve a bigger help as anybody, in my opinion. And that's what we think a rising tide across the board raises all ships. And that's what we're going to continue to do all we can to make sure that every business in this state has the best opportunity, and that we create a climate, which we're doing, keeping the size of government under control, making sure the right incentive package is in place, so that these businesses can grow, and thus our citizens have more opportunity. And we're going to continue to do that. We've been doing that because at the end of the day, if you create the jobs, the others will take care of themselves. The revenue will be there, and we all know, I can assure you, the business community, you have got to have an educated workforce. You've got to have educated people. And that's the first thing people look at when they come to this state. And it'll happen. We get the revenue, the first thing they'll be looked at are those education needs.
I think they work hand in hand. I don't think one should be before the other. I think we should multitask, try to support the educational system, and also try to support getting jobs here at the same time. Taxes would be last. But what you got to look at is what jobs were lost. You say there's 6,000 jobs being, well, 7,000 jobs were lost since he came into office. So you got to listen to the public officials, like I said earlier. That hasn't happened recently and in the past. Trying to improve the roads, get industry here. But also what you got to do is support education too at the same time. We already have a trained workforce. We need to give public schools the best opportunities, best funding that they need to improve, like I said again, technology, computer technology, one-on-one technology, career tech opportunities. You can't limit those opportunities. We can't pass legislation that limits opportunities for folks around here. We've got to do what we can about getting those jobs here and supporting education, but that should be done at the same time.
Excellent. All right. I'd like to congratulate, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you both for participating in this debate, right? And I would encourage you all to remain civically engaged. I'm glad to see so many people here. I think Mr. Ed Moore is supposed to be, there he is. Come on out, Ed. I'd like to thank Ed and the College Republicans, the College Democrats, and the Justice and Civil Rights Institute, and Mr. O'Rear for keeping the time for me. And give you all, everybody a round of applause. You did a great job as an audience. And I forgot to let them sum up, didn't I? And see, I'm a professor, so I get to make these mistakes. All right. So, Mr. Stewart, you're going to give your submission.
Yes, if elected senator, like I said before, it had to change from the beginning. I would try to support education, get those schools, and not just some schools, but all schools, the funding that they need. That doesn't happen when you divert funds out of the educational trust fund, $40 million, and send it to your friends to make money. You got to pay the teachers better. That's what I'll do down there. Support staff, bus drivers. It means cost of living allowances. They're 10% behind in inflation right now. Those include state employees. Those are patrolmen too. We got to do that. We got to listen to the leaders around here. We got to create a plan. We got to respond to the needs of the community, which hasn't been done. That means bringing economic opportunities here to the fort, to the industrial parks all over the district. We need to preserve the money, have leaders that do that, for places like Montford, for their monies for their water, fire, for their sewer. That hasn't happened. We need to protect that. We need to not limit opportunities when we pass legislation. We don't need to cut budgets and cut training opportunities at the depot like they've done. We don't need to change the unemployment schedules when people are off, when they shut down and they're unemployed. That's happened. We don't need to pass legislation that infringes on people's rights. It's clogged up in the courts. It wastes money. That's wasteful spending. We need a leader down there, and I'll be that leader that doesn't misrepresent facts, is truthful about what's going on, and will represent this community, not forget this community. I look forward to being your next senator, and if I am elected on Tuesday, it'll be a new day in Alabama.
I understand educated as well as anybody in the state and the importance of it. But I talked about a while ago about a snapshot, and I'm afraid that perhaps my opponent just sees a snapshot. My job as your representative is much larger. I've got to look not only at the education, its needs, but the business community and their needs, the state departments and their needs, the prisons. I've got to look at all of it. And you've got to balance, and it's not easy, but we do it. And in this state, we give you a balanced budget every year, and I'm going to continue to do that. I think it's very clear. I mean, it's between now, but you've got a clear choice. My background is, I was a businessman. I created jobs. I've been in the public school system. My wife's a teacher. And then you've got a gentleman who's never really created a job. And he believes obviously in bigger government and higher tax budgets. I'm not. I'm about fiscal responsibility and efficiency. And that's the way you've seen that firsthand. And I'm not scared to make a stance and do something that should be done. And that's the reference to the Accountability Act and school choice for parents and students who've never had it before that were trapped in failing systems. I don't think anybody should be put in that position. They can't afford to get out. So I'm going to always do the right thing. It may not be the politically favored thing based on the audience you're in. And I could come in here and probably talk to a lot of folks and give them just what they want. But I'm giving you the facts. It's a difficult task, but I'm up for it. I've been up for it, and I'll continue to do it for you. And I'll do the right thing. And I think that's what you want. You want to know when someone goes down there doing the right thing and representing you well. And I think I have done that, and I hope you'll send me back to do it for 4 more years. Thank you.
Thank you again to both of you. Ed, you want to come out? And thanks for being such a great audience. I hope you've learned something. The quiz will be Friday.
Good evening, everyone. I do want to apologize. I did not introduce myself in the introduction I gave to you all. I'm Ed Moore III. I'm the president and founder of the Justice and Civil Rights Initiative. We are a civil and human rights organization based here on the campus of Jacksonville State University. And we thank you all so much for attending this. You all, we just did a head count of everyone that was here. 255 of you all. 255 of you all showed up. I'm not sure what the attendance was for the other events, but you all packed this one out. Thank you so much for coming out. And we also want to thank the Office of the President of Jacksonville State University, Dr. William A. Meehan, for allowing us to have this event on his campus. And we also would like to thank the Jacksonville State University College Republicans and the Jacksonville State University College Democrats. And thank you so much to our moderator, Dr. Paul R. Beasley, and our candidates, Senator Dale March and Taylor Stewart. Thank you all so much for coming. And just one more thing, as you all exit, please make sure to take a look at the tables for the Justice and Civil Rights Initiative, the JSU College Republicans, and the JSU College Democrats. God bless. Have a wonderful night.
Nice to meet you.